Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your host, MagMongoSlade. Right now, we're going to be discussing Mercedes Monet's comments about Vince McMahon and how the complexities of relationships confuse the average Twitter guy and people who think they're the moral center of the universe. And how human relationships can have ebbs and flows. That doesn't mean that you hate somebody forever or that you love them forever. First, what am I talking about? Okay, so Mercedes Monet, in her magazine, I guess, online magazine, spoke well of Vince McMahon and their relationship. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the first point is most people are discussing her appearance on The Breakfast Club. Now, I didn't talk about that on this channel because I rarely listen to wrestlers talk. And then there's certain things that I really don't care that much about. But since I didn't talk about it, I will be playing the audio from Sasha on The Breakfast Club here to do a little bit of analysis. Then we're going to go into what she said about Vince McMahon in the magazine. And then I guess we can go through their history because they have a pretty good history, the two of them. And then I guess we'll go into some of the responses of people who obviously know everything and are, I guess, upset at Mercedes. So first, let's get into what she said on The Breakfast Club.
I left for many different reasons. A lot of personal stuff happened with myself and the chairman at the time. And I didn't like how he talked to me and how I was, just talked down to. And I was like, you know what? It's time to legit listen to your soul and your heart. There was a light that came to me one day and I just left WWE. And
wait a minute. Okay, so I'm distracted by something. We'll get to that in a second. So there was a little a disagreement between the two. Some kind of issue about the way Vince talked to her, maybe the tone and tenor of the conversation. She wasn't feeling it, so she decided to leave. But did she just say a light came to her? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Never mind.
My guides told me, and I'm guided to being a two-time.
She getting guided by lights? Are these searchlights? She's about a psych hospital.
I'm champion at AEW.
So you see somebody like Vince McMahon. He's got a sexual abuse suit, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not the lawyer. I don't know, something like that.
But he used to talk to.
She said something like that. I don't know. This is crazy.
Crazy?
Yeah, a little crazy. That day he would talk to me a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was enough to be like, I'm out.
It was enough for my source of light to come into my body and be like, you know what, if you...
Her source of light? Why she keep saying that? What kind of Gnostic shit is she on? Never mind.
Stay. That's not okay. This is for the rest of your life. And what are you going to teach your kids? What are you going to teach just people? If you're feeling like this from words, after being here for 10 years, you got to stand up for yourself. And that's what I did. There's a light, the same light that came to me when I was 10 years old, being like, this is your sole purpose. This is what you're going to do. Another light came to me and being like, you got to walk away and do something.
Is she linked from Zelda? Is she talking to the lights now? I remember playing Zelda and that, like the little fairy just follows you around, just like a little ball of light just following you around all the time.
And better for yourself. So.
And there was no protection for you guys, for wrestlers, especially for female wrestlers at all?
No, but we're changing that every day. I'm changing that every day for women's wrestling. Yeah.
So there was no human resources over there that could be like, you can complain?
We went to everybody and.
Human resources. Well, that's the end of the clip. Anyway, human resources. I guess the equivalent would be talent relations. But talent relations and human resources, they're basically the same thing. Well, as far as my knowledge of it, which is pretty limited. And that is that human resources are there to protect the company, not really to protect the talent. Most people have that misconception that human resources are there for you. No. Human resources is there to protect the company. Okay? That's why they exist. But in any event, Vince is the boss. He's the chairman. What are you going to do? Okay, so her and Vince McMahon had an argument. She didn't like the tone or the way that he was speaking to her. And so she decided to leave, which I 100% respect. I have no problem with that. If you feel like somebody's disrespecting you, you don't have to take that. Why take disrespect and you don't have to? There's just really no point to that. Okay, so October the 4th, she puts out her Mercedes mag, and in it, there's a couple of things about Vince McMahon. The first piece is about being backstage with Vince, thanking him for the TV time and the opportunities to give him to be on TV. The second is, sometimes when people will go up to Vince and look for criticism and praise or whatever to see how they did that night. And she wrote on criticisms and praise of Vince McMahon, she says, quote, "There have been many moments in those post-match exchanges where Vince would criticize me, and many more when he would say he loved my performance. As far as the criticisms, was he always right? Back then, the boss didn't think so. But as the CEO, a leader, not just a boss, oh God, I'm sure some were accurate. He is the genius and reason we all have the level of fame, money, and success we all do." And then she starts talking about the time she ribbed Vince because he mistakenly ended a match between her and Nia Jax early. And she went back there and cut into Vince over it. But then she had this comment today about the documentary. She says, quote, "On to the big white elephant in the room, as in the big Vince McMahon Netflix documentary. As I said last week, I couldn't wait to watch. Watching all 6 episodes, honestly, I was a little disappointed and didn't feel like there was too much new for me. I'll say this, as I watched, I couldn't believe that I got to work for Vince. What a crazy genius he is, and how he really elevated wrestling to a whole new stratosphere. He created a universe fans have enjoyed for decades and still do. He made wrestling larger than life. He did it all, and he tried it all, and he failed so many times too. Where the business is at today is all because of him and his ideas. And that's what I really liked it." Okay? So she liked the documentary because she likes Vince. So the internet blows up. A section of the internet blows up of fans criticizing Mercedes about her support. Well, I wouldn't say full support about Vince McMahon. Let's go through some of these, and then I'm going to kind of go into how their relationship has evolved over time. Because if you're following along, her and Vince got along great. And then one day they had an argument. And sometimes you get sick of their shit. They're sick of your shit. You need to leave for a little while. This happens all the time. It happened to Roddy Piper, Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock. It happens, The Ultimate Warrior. It happens. People get into these arguments with Vince. He's intractable. You can't move him. So you have to leave. Even his son left eventually and came back. It happens. It doesn't mean that you permanently hate each other. I know that we live in a false binary world where you get into an argument with somebody and then all of a sudden you hate them for the rest of your natural life. That very, very rarely happens. Very, very rarely happens. So here's some of the responses after Mercedes put this magazine out. She says, "I'm not sure why Mercedes Monet licking Vince McMahon's ass in 2024 when he literally the reason why she leave. If it's from business perspective, I kind of understand why. But girl, it's 2024. And after his documentary aired, come on." People think documentaries are the truth now, which they should have learned. A documentary is a TV show. For God's sake. Moving on. "In a way, I'm glad Mercedes Monet said that stupid shit about Vince McMahon. Because it's once again proving that yes, AEW fans can and will call out people in the company when they say or do something idiotic." Well, there's not a lot of them. I had to cherry pick these because a lot of people just kind of ignored it. So here's another one. "You do not need to share fond memories of Vince McMahon. That's incredibly harmful, especially now while he's in the middle of a legal case. The court of public perception is real, and Mercedes should absolutely know better than to praise him is unnecessary and harmful. Oh my God. I can feel the Karen. Can you hear this screeching through the goddamn Twitter account? Yikes. For starters, we need to go back to a proper definition of harm where you've actually been physically damaged by something. Second, I know that Ann Callis, the attorney for Janelle Grant, has been creating like this dossier of quotes from like Ronda Rousey and other wrestlers who talking about Vince McMahon's toxic culture. It's like, yeah, you can quote all the bitter ex-wrestlers you want, Dave Meltzer and all these guys. That's all great. None of it proves that he was guilty of sex trafficking, so none of that matters. And when they say public perception is real, but yes, but when the jury are I was about to say retards, but I was trying to be kind to retards. Moving on. Here's another one. We have to accept that anyone that worked for Vince for an extended amount of time has that opinion of him. Mercedes Monet is one of hundreds, but most have the self-awareness to keep it private. Yeah, you have to be quiet. Most people just don't care, you know? I think most folks are just sitting around trying to see what shakes out. That seems to be the general, probably the most mature position to take, is instead of knee-jerking, you're just going to see what happens. Let's see where it goes. Here's another one. For the life of me, I don't understand the grip Vince has over these people. The old-timers clearly have a form of Stockholm Syndrome, but Mercedes? The old man fucked her over multiple times and was 90% of the reason she left WWE. And she went out of her way to praise him? Tragic! I really hate that we got brainwashing and Stockholm Syndrome and stuff like this in our lexicon, because it completely takes away your agency. See, when you got Stockholm Syndrome or you've been brainwashed, your agency has been removed. And we know that human beings can be hacked in that way. You can literally kidnap somebody and brainwash them. But usually when somebody is kidnapped and or brainwashed, they're not allowed to go home to their apartments and houses every week. Unless it was a cult, like a Jim Jones kind of deal. But even then, he had those people living on the property. That's kind of what happened on cults, is you don't want people to go away and mingle with the rest of society. You want them to stay within the cult. Considering people often left, even she often left, not quite the same thing. So it's not Stockholm Syndrome. It's certainly not brainwashing. So here's another one. We do not, under any circumstances, have to praise Vince McMahon at all. The man is a psychopath who terrorized women and made enemies of many people for being a racist asshole too. Mercedes literally did an interview recently where she said Vince disrespected her. She's going to write a book, I heard. It ought to be a thin book, actually, full of stories that she's already told. And it's going to end up being like The Rock in a minute. And I don't mean by, in the terms of how successful she is. I'm talking about how repetitive the stories are going to be. Anyway, here's another one. Vince McMahon really brainwashed so many wrestlers. He low-key groomed some of them to be loyal to him for life. The way they praise him is proof of that. It's shocking that Mercedes is one of them, especially after everything that happened in terms of her departure from WWE. Now we got grooming. So we went from brainwashing to Stockholm Syndrome. Now we got grooming. Holy guacamole. You can't just like people. You just can't have a good relationship with people that changes and ebbs and flows like normal relationships do. It's got to be you were groomed. Groomed? There's not... Oh, Lord. That will require a lot. Look, I will say this. The idea that Vince McMahon, is seen as a father figure by so many talent. This is something that is pretty damn true. That happens a lot. And it's difficult because sometimes he seems to cultivate that while other times he kind of resists it. Like, he doesn't mind being a father figure, but he also wants to remain distant from the boys, distant from the talent. At the same time, him being so much older than so many of them, he can't help but be a mentor as he's coaching and guiding them through their careers. You know, that's what we used to call people who were mentors. We used to call them father figures. Your pastor, your coach, you know, somebody, even your supervisor, mentor, manager, or somebody who's significantly older than you, who is helping you through life. We used to call them a father figure or an uncle figure, auntie, you know, big brother, big sister, whatever. In Vince's situation, when it comes to Mercedes, it would be a father figure. He's twice her age. You know, it might not be the same for, you know, Ric Flair, who is like as old as Vince, but for so many other people, Vince is old enough to be their father. And since they see him more than they see their own parents, which I think Shawn Michaels said in the documentary, and he's the one guiding them through their careers, they could see him as a father figure. But even if he was a father figure, that doesn't change anybody's mind about the kind of stuff he's being accused of. Because you can still have a decent relationship with somebody and they get accused of some really terrible shit, and you cannot condone that behavior. I'll say it right now. I 100% condone all good things. I condemn all bad things. So if you did something and it was bad, you're bad forever. You're a horrible person. Even though I didn't look into it, I don't know what's really going on. She's focused on her own life, her own career. She's going through a divorce and everything. She kind of moved on. Doesn't really know what's happening. Kind of, sort of. She knows more than she's letting on, I'm sure. But these situations are not as cut and dry and binary as some people on the internet who have already made up their mind, because they made up their mind 15 years ago, what they think. Here's the one. I think this is going to be the last one. No, two more. Mercedes became the latest in a long of wrestlers, I guess a long line of wrestlers, to detach themselves from reality and lack any social awareness by praising sex trafficker and thoroughbred cunt Vince McMahon. But CTE doesn't exist. Right, guys? Are you saying she has CTE? So you're a doctor now. Not only are you judge, jury, but you're also a doctor. Oh. Not going to say what kind of doctor, even though I'm pretty sure we already know. Moving on. Very disappointing that Mercedes Monet is another wrestler brainwashed by Vince. I don't understand what you gain when you decide to carry water for Vince McMahon in 2024 after everything we know. Very disheartening. Well, here's the thing. You don't know anything. You heard a story. You read some text messages from one side of a conversation. You looked at things out of context and you just decided, I know everything, because you read something out of context. But these people, again, conversations, these things, they're immune to thinking like human beings. You don't have to agree with anything Mercedes said to understand that she's a human being. Human beings have real relationships with real people. Vince McMahon is a real person that she actually knows. And in 2019, she called him her best friend. Yeah. She, remember, she went on sabbatical for a while. One of her many sabbaticals. And she returned and said, quote, "Since I came back, Vince gave me a really good contract. We have this great relationship because we just talk money. He wants me to make him cool. So I'm helping him with his jokes. We text every single day. He sends me a private jet. He got me a bus. I'm so blessed and so lucky. I'm probably the first woman to ever have her own bus. I'm making millions. Did you know that? I'm so rich. Me and Vince are like best friends now. I'm so happy that me and Vince have this relationship where we can have fun. He slides into my DMs. I'm like, why are you in my DMs? Just call me up." And has numerous articles where she's talking about her relationship with Vince McMahon. But people think that these things are cut and dry. She was at one point, an important part of the show. She was at one point somebody he was close with. Again, she's talking about how they talk every day. They talk business. This isn't just her in character, because she talked about this on like the Steve Austin podcast and other podcasts she did before she left. So when you have an argument with somebody that you're close with and you need to go your own way, you need a break from them. They need a break from you. That doesn't turn into mortal hatred. And just because somebody accused somebody of something doesn't mean that it's true. You wait to see what's going on. You wait to see how that shakes out. Very odd, especially from people. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say anything else. But it's a very interesting scenario that we got here between the Vince McMahon, Mercedes Monet relationship. So in 2019, she also tweeted out, millions, check. Private jet, check. Own bus, check. Glam team, check. Answer to no one, check. Thank you, Vince. And then she gives him a thumbs up. She does this stuff. She's been doing this stuff for years. Now, I know that the internet thinks that you should just adopt their personality and their way of thinking on things. That's not how actual people behave, especially when you know people in real life. It may shake out that Vince is the terrible terrorist that everybody says he is. If that's the case, maybe people's tune will change. Till then, though, you absolutely, positively should appreciate people who helped you. If people did something for you, put money in your pocket, helped you reach your goals and dreams, you absolutely should appreciate them. And they should, to some degree, have the benefit of the doubt. I don't see a problem with that. You very well should be comfortable listening to somebody like Eric Young. You want to listen to him? Fine. He worked there for a cup of coffee. But there's a lot of people who worked there a decade who have a different opinion. Nobody's going to create a compendium of positive things that people say about Vince. And nobody cares to read that anyway. All you really got to do is understand that human beings have complex relationships where you go through these peaks and valleys. This 1 minute we're best friends, the next minute, because that's how human beings work. You have schisms. The problem they had was apparently professional in nature, and that's why she had to separate. She had to go and grow her own brand, own her own thing, do her own thing. That's fine. It doesn't mean that she hates him. So I don't understand what's wrong with any of these people, except the fact that they are not humans. They're tweeting for Twitter. They're virtue signaling. They're doing this for the hearts and likes. You don't act like this in real life. Nobody does. In real life, nobody behaves like they do on social media. Because if they did, they would be the most insufferable son of a bitch walking the face of the earth. You'd have no friends, no family. It's just unreal. But I figure I'd talk about this, and now I've done so. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
No one does it better.